Hi, this is Mike Dragan, host of the Live Commerce podcast. Our guests today are Soufia Trabelsi, Web3 Gaming Lead at Polygon Studios, and Brian Trunzo, Metaverse Lead at Polygon Studios. Brian, Soufia, it's great to have you here. Could you introduce yourself for our audience and maybe tell us a little bit about what you do and the company and technology at large?
My name is Soufia. I'm the Web3 Gaming Lead at Polygon Studios. So basically what that kind of narrows down to is finding the up-and-coming Web3 games, working closely with studios in Web2 to help them with their transition, and Web3 sort of like providing the tools. That's what we do at Studio. It's the creative arm of Polygon. So we work directly with the projects that are going on Polygon to make sure that they can navigate these waters, and like we're with them during that process. So that's sort of the role that I'm in right now.
Awesome. How about you, Brian?
Yeah. Hey, guys. Brian Trunzo, Metaverse Lead at Polygon Studios. That nebulous term, Metaverse, can mean so many things to so many people, but the way we look at it as a vertical is open protocol, virtual worlds, anything that's driven by UGC, user-generated content. Recreation competes with social media, competes with reality, that sort of idea there. Obviously, this all blends together, right? Gaming is so important, not only to the metaverse, but to Polygon and Polygon Studios. And to build on what Soufia was saying, you know, working in a biz dev capacity as consultants, advisors, in some instances as VCs, we do deploy capital into the space to capture upside on that which is being built upon Polygon. And an endearing term that I'm trying to coin, so maybe to pick up some traction here, playing composability quarterback, spreading the ball around the field, making sure all of our great protocols, decentralized applications, brands know who to be working with. So just a little bit about myself, Studios, and Polygon.
Awesome. So now that we touched upon this, the concept of metaverse, I have one question. Why now? Why is the metaverse happening now, and how are games interacting with the metaverse?
Yeah, I could take that first. I don't think it's so much why now. I think it's something that has been emerging since the concept was first birthed. And I do not think that we will, quote unquote, achieve the metaverse. You know, we won't have a moment where all of a sudden, you know, we've emerged and stood up on two legs out of the sea the way evolution occurred. I think it will take time. And I think we will emerge from it. I think it's not going to be that one day we wake up and say, metaverse is here. I think it'll take some time to get there. And maybe to try to answer your question a little bit more directly in the spirit of the way that you asked it, I think it's because the technology is almost there. I think it's because the user behavior is almost there. You know, we had accelerants like COVID, for instance. If one could find some silver lining from COVID, it's that people spent more time online. People wanted to spend time in a persistent and synchronous manner online. So I think it's just a matter of the fact that we've evolved to this place, and we will emerge into the metaverse.
That sounds cool. Soufia, how are games being developed now in the metaverse, and how does the Web3 revolution impacts games?
The trend that I'm seeing right now is that the games are trying to like also like create some experiences, and like they're using the metaverses as their playground. So like the top two metaverses are on Polygon. So we have Decentraland and Sandbox, and they're kind of going to these realms to offer an experience to their users, just for them to sort of have like an arena to all get together, and they all have their avatars. So I think it's just like an extra layer of community as well, which is really cool. And like just from like a philosophical note, like I completely agree with what Brian said, that like there's not like, it's not like you're gonna wake up one day and be like, okay, like metaverse is here. And also like the way I like to think about it is that like trying to replicate reality, like you'll never be as good as the real thing. So it's like if we're trying to like replicate real life, it's never going to be as good as real life. So it's kind of like your version of reality. So like that's your experience. Then you get to have people there and come and see like your version of reality.
So we're not going to have Neuralink implanted anytime soon for us to access the metaverse. Do you think we'll accelerate through this AR, VR, XR world and go through the stages of adoption of virtual worlds and decentralized worlds, and see something new from, let's say, experiential point of view? So not just Oculus, but something much deeper from an experiential point of view.
I personally think it's all going to come to a head in a blended manner, right? I think once we've sort of like achieved the metaverse, again, if we could ever even do that, one wouldn't even know that they're in it, really, because everything will be so seamless. It reminds me of, you know, the early dial-up days with the internet. You used to go online, right? Like you would tell people I'm going online, and once you were online, you kind of disconnected from the offline world. You know, you dialed up on your modem and you were online. Now you're just simply always, it would be so odd to tell someone that you're online. Like we're online right now and I'm not announcing that to the world. And I feel like once we achieve metaverse, right, that will be the way that it works, right? No one now, when I log into Decentraland or Sandbox, or, you know, I put on my Oculus or I engage with certain AR devices, I can say, yes, I'm tapping into the metaverse. But once that becomes the current state and, you know, being the successor state to the mobile internet, that's what it will be. I don't think we'll be looking at it in that way.
Yep. You did mention that the leading metaverses, Decentraland, Sandbox, are on Polygon. How did that happen? How did they choose Polygon?
So the actual deals that were struck, I guess, predate me. So I wouldn't have any information as to the discussions that were had. Actually, I wasn't in the room. But I think that if I were in the room, the conversations that would have been had was simply to solve for the speed, transaction throughput, and cost of transactions on the Ethereum blockchain, and how Polygon maintaining a pure level of composability with the Ethereum blockchain, that's to say, being EVM compatible and equivalent, was the obvious choice to be the rails upon which these virtual worlds allow for NFT transactions to take place, right? So I think it's just a common sense kind of choice. It's just that the tech is the best tech for this specific application. And with that, you know, with our meta transactions, which are actual costless transactions to the user, it abstracts away some of the pain points on MetaMask, this idea of gas. Even though gas is inexpensive, very inexpensive on Polygon, this idea of meta transactions in Decentraland and Sandbox make it even easier because it's free. So I would imagine those were the sorts of conversations that were had.
No, that sounds awesome. So how do NFTs fit into the metaverse and the upcoming Web3 games? Soufia, do you want to start with how NFTs fit into Web3 games?
Yeah, I mean, just before I start, like the only thing that I would add to the sort of like migration that the metaverse has made to Polygon is that we're actually a layer 2 on Ethereum. So transitioning from the Ethereum network to the Polygon network is like ridiculously simple. So that's like one thing that I just wanted to like throw out there for all the Ethereum projects. So in terms of the NFTs, like the in-game assets, like we've kind of witnessed play to earn, so earning tokens as you're playing the game, and like now it's kind of transitioning more to in-game assets and the creation of this creator seller economy for folks to go and, you know, sell their in-game assets to generate revenue, but also, you know, it's more of a community thing right now, and they get to show, like, they get to proudly like just display what they've been able to earn in the game and what they've been able to create in the game. So that's sort of the trend that's emerging right now.
So there's actually an economy building up in the gaming space where people can earn, transact, and move items, digital items, across multiple virtual worlds. Do you think older?
Yeah, I mean, there's a secondary.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Do you think all older virtual worlds, such as Fortnite, World of Warcraft, will transition to this kind of transactions?
I think if they were going to transition, Polygon would be their best fit. I think right now what we're doing at Polygon is essentially preparing ourselves for that wave of applications that will be migrating for the big sort of games with a lot of users. We've invested a lot of money into, like creating technology that will accommodate these millions and billions of users. So we are working on Polygon Edge, Polygon Zero, so having your own side chain if you're something like Fortnite where you have millions and millions of users. So we're kind of setting up that infrastructure to prepare for that wave of Web2 users making the move to Web3.
You mentioned Polygon Edge. Can you describe the term and technology a little bit?
Well, essentially, it's a sidechain for not essentially having like your own sidechain. It can be for whatever reason. There's proof of authority with that, or you can have validators. We help them set up that infrastructure to accommodate their transactions. I would say that Edge is geared for projects that are sort of foreseeing to have like millions of transactions. So a very heavy load of transactions, and then they can sort of take ownership and authority of their own chain while benefiting, from the Polygon infrastructure. So it's a scaling solution essentially for the bigger games. Yeah.
Brian, I know that you have a background in fashion and fashion events. Do you think we'll be wearing our NFTs in the Metaverse soon?
Yeah, I mean, Decentraland just had their Metaverse Fashion Week last week, and the reports haven't come out in terms of like the statistics, in terms of daily active users during the week. But I poked in consistently throughout the week, and it was very well attended, and people were buying skins for their avatars and just having a good old time generally. Thinking about where this goes, this is how I sort of got into Web3 really 5 years ago with CryptoKitties launching on the Ethereum blockchain. I was doing trend forecasting for major fashion labels, explaining to them what the kids are getting into. And as the ERC 721 contract was being developed, I started slipping slides into my presentations about digital scarcity, trying to relate it back to skins and cosmetics inside video games, explaining that at that time, the $50 billion or so in-game cosmetic economy, how that was going to, in my mind, dwarf the $2 trillion physical apparel economy. And I still hold that belief. I still personally, this is not a Polygon belief, this is a me belief. I do believe that digital skins and wearables and cosmetics will eventually, now whether that's 5, 10, 100 years from now, I won't plant a flag and make a comment on that. But I do believe that's the way the world is moving. Young Gen Z, all of Gen Alpha spend a significant amount of time interacting digitally. And if you look at the way Web 1 and Web 2, our gateways to Web 1 and Web 2, with Web 1, that was the mouse, right? You used a mouse to click on a browser. With Web 2, it is your finger, right? We have mobile and we're using touchscreens. And Web 3, the gateway will be the avatar, right? This persistent, synchronous, immersive internet. And if that thesis is correct, it stands to also be correct, probably, that the avatar as a piece of like sovereign identity, as a way to represent yourself and showcase what you are into digitally, will become the most important part of this metaverse idea, really, for the user. And with that will come wearables and the economy around it.
That's very interesting. I know that Nike has acquired an NFT company. So what would be your advice for a company that was in traditional fashion or beauty and would want to transition to the Web3 world, and how they would adapt to this new world?
Yeah, I think it's recognizing the opportunity for what it is currently and growing with the opportunity, right? If your idea is to make an incredible amount of revenue today, that's not going to happen, right? You're not going to, or there's a very low likelihood that would happen today, right? The users aren't there to sustain a P&L that's 9 figures in the metaverse. That's not a reality. However, partnering with Web3 emerging players, learning and iterating in the space and developing long-term strategies, that is something that is not only doable and achievable, but in my mind, advisable. Being an early adopter and looking to learn and iterate in Web3, I think is advisable for any brand that has an innovation department. I think it's advisable for any brand, but particularly those that have an innovation department, an R&D department, those who spend real dollars on concept. And there are some really amazing creative agencies out there who are giving that sort of advice.
Can you name a few cases that are doing great stuff in the fashion / NFTs / Web3 world? Maybe some agencies that maybe some of our listeners can tap into. You know,
from the legacy world, D&G, Dolce & Gabbana, is doing a fantastic job with UNXD, built on Polygon. They started with discrete drops, really earned media opportunities and investment opportunities through auctions. They launched their Doge Crown, which was aptly titled, and it sold for $6 million US. Now, this was at the height of the first NFT boom, so they really rode that wave in an incredible way. It was a great brand building exercise. Now D&G is rolling out, so that was sort of like the learn, and now they're iterating, right? They're rolling out their D&G boxes on UNXD very, very soon. They've announced that, and it's a way to sort of gamify next-gen loyalty rewards programs. So that's been really incredible to watch. And then to speak on maybe a Web3 native brand, so a non-legacy brand, Ouroboros is a fantastic brand from London that is doing really incredible things, working with partners, right? They're not doing it alone. And I think that WAGMI part of Web3 and the metaverse really is important to note here, right? Tapping partners in the space, whether they are building AR filters or marketplaces, Solidity developers, really tapping the energy of the entire ecosystem that's on Polygon. And Ouroboros is doing amazing stuff with AR and Web 2, kind of like Web 2.5, doing amazing wearables in Decentraland. And they're just sort of one of the leaders in the emerging Web 3 fashion space.
Soufia, are there any specific cases of games on Web3 that you've seen, interested use cases, some interesting evolutions, any specific games that you'd point our listeners to that are part of the Web3 revolution?
I think probably my favorite game right now is like Avegachi, because they've kind of like bridged that sort of Web3 metaverse weird dimension gray area. And it's just like a great way to get like their users like kind of like accustomed to like this arena. I like games that like offer like quality. I think that was kind of like what was not so good about like Web3 gaming, was that like the quality was just like not there. Like they all look like a 90s weird version game. I wasn't like a gamer in the 90s, but like I've seen the games and like they kind of do look like them. But I feel like I like to see games that want to offer like a quality experience to their users, and they're like more like gamer first, because play to earn is more of like an investor type approach, and then play and earn, having free to play is appealing more to gamers, so you have loyalty there. So I'm a fan of any game that is proposing something interesting to their users.
From your point of view, how do games in the Web3 world differ from previous games? I know there's been a huge revolution when it came to, let's say, Web 2 and connected games. Most of the or RPG games have evolved with this revolution. What do you think Web3 is going to bring conceptually different for games?
Well, I mean, for the first time ever, you can actually, I mean, like if you're not a pro or amateur like gamer, you could actually make a living from gaming right now, like from play to earn, from the like sort of like seller creator economy of selling in-game assets. Like you can actually pay your rent with that right now, which is pretty cool. So it can actually be like your profession. I think what's very unique about Web3 gaming is that economic layer. Where people can monetize the gaming experience. So it's kind of like joining fun and utility at the same time, which is a completely different proposition from everything that came before in Web 2. So having that economic layer is really a game changer.
So what's happening right now is that the game economy is blending in with the real world economy and creating something new that is probably going to change the real world economy as well, right?
Well, when you're playing a Web3 game, the rewards are in forms of tokens that you can, convert for fiat later on. So they're actually liquid, which means that like this is actual like real money that you can convert and then use in real life. That's how they reward their gamers in the game. And also like NFT assets that are created in the game or won in the game can be sold in the secondary economy. So that's another source of revenue right there. This was not previously possible, or was very difficult to achieve, I would say, with like Web 2, just to not make any like firm statements. So yeah, it's an entirely different proposition. And I think that's why gamers feel valued with Web3, just because I think like that notion of like you're spending too much time playing games, it's like now you're spending too much time playing games and you're also able to have spending power as a result of that. So that's pretty cool.
Very interesting. Brian, we have shifted a lot in terms of commerce when it came to e-commerce, but the e-commerce concept hasn't changed all that much in the past 20 years. Do you think we'll be seeing metaverse shopping outside of the fashion industry experiments anytime soon?
I guess the nebulous term there is soon. That needs to be defined. I think inevitably, yes. I think that's the way the world is moving. And there are some really great use cases and players who are innovating in the space, one of which I always like to call out to is Boson Protocol. Some of the things that they're doing linking digital products to physical products is just like mind-blowing, right? As a former retailer, the art of buying a collection for your store and predicting future sales, it's part art, part paint by numbers, and inventory is a killer for retailers. And Boson Protocol is basically enabling a pre-market futures option on purchase orders, right? Where I, as a retailer, can make a purchase order that can be tokenized and is represented by a token. And I can trade that token. So if I'm in the money on a product, let's say the product gets good hype before it's released, I can cash in that option and not take delivery of the inventory, and someone else can actually place their bet on that inventory. And that's all done through tokens, and that's on Boson Protocol. And it's such early days that is just one example of where this could go, right? We truly are in the first inning. In many ways, we're still in the dugout, right? I feel like a lot of people don't know there's a game going on, right? We're just gearing up for it. But yeah, Boson's incredible, and we will see some amazing e-commerce tools emerge in this space that will revolutionize the way that business is done. Some other use cases, provenance, tokenizing the supply chain, understanding where these products come from, which products are authentic. Those sort of use cases have been widely discussed in the media. And again, this is just really the tip of the iceberg.
Is there any way that the content creators are gonna benefit from this new world, especially in you mentioned logistics and supply chain, but there's also new ways that you can promote products as a content creators and maybe earn tokens, which you can exchange for actual goods or actually spend them. Do you think this is happening right now?
I think it's starting to happen. One of the great promises of Web3 is disintermediating rent collectors, right? And one of the greatest rent collectors of all time are, those who sell ad space, right? They're the middleman to get your message to an audience. And a lot of those advertising models really sort of plague content creators, right? Content creators are notoriously underpaid for their content, right? You need hundreds of millions of views on YouTube to earn a living. So these content creators are dealing with advertising, sponsorships, affiliate deals, and each of these mechanics have 1, 2, or 3 layers of middlemen that can be disintermediated by tokens. So we're pacing towards a world where a content creator can create his or her content, and those who view the content can tip in tokens as opposed to upvotes. A really great project that's launching on Polygon, which is doing this in the game streaming space. You could think of it as sort of like Twitch meets TikTok with a token on top of it. So instead of having Twitch bits, you have what are called fresh cut diamonds, and that's the name of the decentralized application. It's called Fresh Cut, where you can upvote content creators who are putting their clips of esports onto fresh cut with these fresh cut diamonds. And there's a whole tokenomic sort of incentive structure to continue to push content creators towards making content and having people engage with it.
Like Brian said, I think it's like the perfect time right now to be a content creator and like have like taking ownership of their content and monetizing their content. I mean, this infrastructure is really there to kind of like protect the artists and to make sure that they're able to essentially monetize and, you know, be free of the middlemen, as Brian said, because like those kind of barriers are imposed in real life. So if you're an artist, you have to go through a gallery and they have to approve you in that like gallery. But like in Web3, you can sort of go to a curated marketplace and be able to show your art and your content there. So it's kind of like liberating them from all these, you know, mediums and then just like going straight to the source. A very decentralized process. So that's what I wanted to add. That's all.
That's very interesting. So I know that there's a lot of things happening in the content creation, but also in the art space. The Web3 is decentralizing and disrupting the art world as well. Is there any particular project on Polygon that you see emerging right now in the art space?
Being a permissionless protocol, it's amazing. 90 some odd % of the 7,000 plus decentralized applications, and I feel like it's probably closer to 10,000 since last tallied. We don't even know are being built until they're released, right? So who knows what's really going on behind the scenes in many ways. But one that I'd like to call out, the Creative Owls community. They're doing some amazing things. They're holding an amazing gallery on Polygon in partnership with Spatial.io, which is a metaverse player. It's UGC recreation driven, but it's not an open sandbox like Sandbox or Decentraland. It's more gallery spaces. It's more an immersive Twitter spaces like, hey, come to my space, we'll have a conversation. Oh, by the way, these are NFTs in my gallery that shows my taste level and the things that I'm into. So the Creative Owls community is something to really pay attention to. Spatial, something amazing to pay attention to. And something coming down the pike, a little bit of alpha without releasing too much information. But there's an amazing artist collaborative called Young and Sick. They have done album covers for some of the top pop acts of the early aughts. They are one of the better selling NFT artists on Ethereum mainnet. They're affiliated with the Fluff World gang. They had a really incredible activation at South by Southwest. They will be releasing a project on Polygon in the near future that should be as promising or more promising than anything they've released to date. So a little bit of alpha, a little bit of self-promotion there.
Talking about South by Southwest activations, I know that you guys have done something with Paris Hilton.
Yeah, we had a sandbox event in Austin where we were able to display a lot of the prominent NFT collections at that event, and she was kind enough to come to the party and do her set. So it was kind of a Polygon sandbox event. Yeah.
Got to give a shout out.
So cool.
Got to give a shout out to Every Realm as well. They were also a part of that party. I would like to say it was the party of South by Southwest to give anybody some FOMO if they didn't already have it. So, although the Doodles party was pretty good too. Shout out to Doodles.
Soufia, I know that you hold an aerospace engineering degree. How did you make the shift from aerospace engineering to blockchain and the Web3?
That's a really good question. I have no idea why. What am I doing here, actually? I was in sort of like year 3 or 4 in aerospace, and I started like dabbling on the dev side. So I started like dabbling with Solidity, and it wasn't like as romanticized as it is today. It was sort of like interact directly from your terminal. And I feel like that was great because it kind of like pushed me to like really understand like the basic concepts. So I started my sort of Web3 career as a Solidity developer, freelancer, still managed to graduate aerospace. So I do have an aerospace engineering degree, which I never used, but maybe I'll use it one day. Maybe like Elon Musk will call me and be like, come work for SpaceX or something. I don't know. But I don't see myself working in aerospace in the foreseeable future. I feel like there's the philosophy aspect that really attracted me to Web3, like that decentralized. I mean, it was kind of anonymous back then, and like there's just like it felt like being a part of a movement that like understood you if you didn't know exactly where to place yourself. So there was that aspect that I liked about it a lot, and also like it being the frontier between like technology, arts, the creative. So the incentive for me to like be here really outweighed me being an aerospace engineer. But yeah, super happy to be here. And my favorite part of the job is just being around the creative process and witnessing this movement in real time.
Brian, do you see any downsides to Web3 and the metaverse that are emerging right now?
Yeah, I think this is one of the more important conversations that we should be having is, taking a step back and being honest about the industry, the state of it. It's not perfect, right? The UX UI is, for some, terrible. If you're Web3 native and you've used Web3 applications for a long time, those frictions have been abstracted from your mind. Your mind is playing tricks on you. It's still not very easy for the average person to get into Web3. For instance, if I was to ask my mother to spin up a wallet, I don't know that she could do that. And that it should be the barometer of UX UI, right? Can everyone do this? Is it as seamless and easy as Web 2? And I do think that is something we need to acknowledge. And it will get better over time. It's gotten, every 6 months, I feel like we have massive breakthroughs where it gets significantly better. I think another thing that we need to be very mindful of as an industry is our role in doing the best that we can to protect users. Obviously, it's permissionless and open and self-sovereign, right? So some philosophically can say that no one has any responsibility to protect anyone. You protect yourself. But if you want mainstream adoption, I take a more realistic view that what I perceive to be a more realistic view that, it's incumbent upon us Web3 natives to on-ramp people as seamlessly and easily as possible to protect them. That's to say, we're going west, and as we go west, there are bandits and all sorts of outlaws and people that are looking to do bad, that are doing bad. Just yesterday, there was another astonishing hack of a 9-figure amount on a bridge on the Ronin sidechain for Axie Infinity, right? And those guys are amazing, the Axie team. They don't build on Polygon, but WAGMI, we all love each other. They're incredible. And they'll figure it out, I think, and rectify the situation as best and as possible as they can. But I think, taking a look in the mirror and admitting that these are issues will only benefit us, those of us who work on Web3 and in Web3.
How about you, Soufia? Are there any things that you see that can be improved on the Web3 world?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Brian said. I think, user acquisition and user migration, like Web 2 user migration is going to be one of the central themes for the next foreseeable future. I feel like maybe our moms could know how to use MetaMask if they just shut themselves in a room for a whole day and then maybe, but nobody has the time for that. So it's how do we make it easier for people? How do we make this a non-threatening experience, and how do we make this an approachable experience to get people to come to Web3? Because I think the approach where it's they're gonna come to us because we're this cool culture, we're this cool movement is just not realistic. So simplifying the process, improving UI UX, and allowing for that migration to actually happen. And I think anyone that kind of stresses on that process and makes sure that that's an integral point of their product is said to have a lot of users versus expecting people to have all this awareness about Web3.
Thank you for all these wonderful insights. Now to wrap things up, is there any particular thought or idea that you want to leave our audience with? Any kind of topic that you want them to focus on? Brian?
Yeah, I'm such a big believer that you can't really learn something until you do it. So for anyone who's listening who has been on the fence or maybe has dipped their toe into Web3 and crypto products, I would say put some time aside, put a few dollars aside. You know, transacting on the Polygon network is excessively inexpensive. You can get started with $1 and just start navigating the landscape and learning how to use the infrastructure, getting comfortable with these Web3 products, and just learn by doing. Play around with some DeFi protocols. You know, play around with some blockchain-based games. Sign up for Decentraland or Sandbox or Nifty Island or any one of these great emerging metaverse virtual worlds. So yeah, learn by doing.
Awesome. Soufia, how about you? Any thought, idea for our audience?
I love what Brian said. I would just add, you know, like kind of have fun with it. The space is not like defined as we speak. Everything is happening in real time. There are no rule books. So just like allocating 10 minutes a day to like read about the latest news, or like Brian said, like going and interacting with the protocols is extremely beneficial. And like just doing that every day, in like 2 weeks, will be a Metaverse Game 3 expert. So yeah, get your hands dirty with Web3 and have fun with it.
Awesome. Soufia, Brian, thank you very much for joining our podcast. It's been a wonderful chat. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having us, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.